here. We will be recording the entire meeting. What you say is part of the public record. The recording will be made available for public review next week. To find more information about the project, please go to OregonTolling.org. Community members, you are welcome to email your public comments to us at oregontolling@odot.state.or.us. Please add committee public comment in the subject line. Next slide, please. As we move through our meeting today, let's keep the EMAC working together agreements in mind. Listen, believe, and reflect. Accept non-closure for the moment. Speak your own truth with compassion. Listen to understand. Don't listen to respond. Value and celebrate each other's experiences. Open hearts plus open minds lead to exploration of possibilities. Make space, then take space. Be concise. Bring your best thinking into the room. Attack the problem, not the person. Disagreement, frustration, and differences of opinion are acknowledged, explored, and addressed. Next slide, please. Let's talk about our proposed outcomes for today's meeting. They include, first and foremost, for EMAC to identify your preferred options for the neighborhood health and safety policies and strategies. Secondly, for ODOT to learn from EMAC about the support that you need to help develop recommendations to the Oregon Transportation Commission. And lastly, for EMAC to know more, learn about what ODOT is hearing from the community. Next slide, please. So please take note of this beautiful golden background that you see with this slide. As mentioned during the last meeting, these gold slides represent the voice of EMAC, meaning these statements represent your thoughts, principles, and goals to inform this process. So keep track of them and let us know if you agree. Today's guiding question is, how are we, the Equity Mobility Advisory Committee, guiding the development of a toll program with tangible, equitable investments in neighborhood health and safety? Next slide, please. So we have a wonderful meeting planned today, complete with a lot of information and reporting out and discussion time. Our agenda topics include taking in where we have been and where we're going. Today's meal or main course is the neighborhood health and safety policies and strategies. Discussing EMAC's process to develop recommendations for the Oregon Transportation Commission. An update on neighborhood health and safety performance measures, and a broad range of community updates and public comment. And then we'll close the meeting. So as you can see, this is a robust agenda. So I hope you will accept my apologies in advance for moving things along to keep our timing on track. Next slide, please. We are on this marvelous and uncharted path to implement equity in the tolling program. So let's remind ourselves of where we've been and where we're going. Next slide. To do this, let's revisit the EMAC game plan. If you look at the beginning of the game plan and follow the milestones where months are noted, you'll see what we're calling policy/strategy buckets for equity process and equity investments. So in April and May, the focus was on transit and multimodal, the transit and multimodal policy bucket. So in April, we workshopped EMAC transit and multimodal options. And then in May, we reported out where EMAC landed with those options. In June and July, we pivoted to neighborhood health and safety policy bucket, policy/strategy bucket. And then in keeping with our workshop followed by reporting out format, in June, we workshopped your neighborhood health and safety options. And now in July, this meeting, we will be reporting out about them. After today's meeting, where we are going in August is to explore EMAC's options for affordability, access to jobs, and environmental justice. August, we consolidated into 1 month because we have already developed options that address this area. So then in September through November, we're going to take all your preferred options and finalize recommendations for the Oregon Transportation Commission. Later on in this meeting, we'll take a closer look at what that process looks like. Next slide, please. As promised, today's meal, or main course, is neighborhood health and safety policies and strategies. Next up, let's walk you through input and updates from the last workshop meeting in June. Over to you, Garrett.
Definitely. And it's great to have you back. And thank you, Jessica, for that introduction. Before we dive into this, I just want to take a moment and just recognize the catastrophe we had with the heat wave that came through Oregon and Washington, killing close to 200 people. And one of the things you'll see here, it's very apt because we're talking about heat islands and heat and community health in here. And so that's been very much at the forefront of my mind in going through this. We know that the people hardest hit by the heat wave are, very much the people that I remember growing up in East Cleveland, in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, and that we now call our equity framework communities. So we know they bear the hardest of this brunt. And so we'll talk about it here a bit in the policies and strategies, but when we get to performance measures as well, I have some encouraging news, I think, as far as how we're going to incorporate some of the heat island data into our analysis. So again, we're looking at where are we going to see ODOT's commitments to neighborhood health and safety investments. And so we're using this butterfly analogy again to show kind of where these are at in formation. Everything from the strategy policy level where there's still some things to be worked out. It's that chrysalis, it's emerging adult butterfly. Whereas the performance measures are pretty specific and you see there's a lot of verbiage put to it. And the changes that you're seeing made to performance measures go directly into impacting the projects. Next slide. And so last month, we had these just highlight the good documents that we kind of came through, we dove into, we gathered the research on, we looked at those initial options. And so based on the feedback we got from EMAC and the discussions there, and then the subsequent meeting with our NEPA SCUBA team and kind of diving into the performance measures, we have some proposed updates for that policy and strategy options, as well as performance measures, which we'll talk about later. And so again, to remind ourselves just the definition, a strategy, it can be a specific investment, but it also can be just kind of a range of investments as well. And it goes above and beyond what is in mitigation. And then policies, this is an administrative rule or some type of decision used to guide actions kind of throughout. And so again, it's not tied down to one specific toll project. So if there are policies that are committed to, they would inform kind of toll projects wherever it be on a section of I-205 or on the full regional system. And so Chris Lepe, now our wonderful first facilitator from the last meeting, is going to walk through these next few slides. But again, what you're seeing here on the screen is EMAC's language. And so if you want edits or revisions to this, please weigh in upon this. From the ODOT side, our position in this is trying just to best capture, summarize, and bring the information to you. So Chris, I'll transition it to you to walk us through these next few slides.
Perfect, thank you, Garrett. So the first two policy and strategy options are focused around the allocation of toll revenues. The first is more so focused or oriented around addressing the impacts of diversion off the highway, and the second proposes to allocate toll revenue funding to community-based organizations to improve neighborhood health and safety. So I'll read off each of these for you here. Dedicate percentage of toll revenues or dollars annually to address diversion off of the highway created by tolling, especially for communities identified in the equity framework. Investments would address the following health and safety needs: access to human needs, neighborhood livability, safety, and environmental quality. For reference, these needs are defined in the Neighborhood Health and Safety Policy and Strategy Options document in your packet. The next toll revenue allocation bucket here is to dedicate percentage of toll revenues or dollars annually to community-based organizations to invest in programs or projects that improve neighborhood health, local small businesses, address impacts of climate change, or improve safety. The next two policy and strategy options are focused on the affordability and health connection. So I'll read this one off for you here. provide credits, exemptions, or discounts for public emergency response vehicles, non-emergency medical vehicles, and to support social service or nonprofit health organizations, recruit and retain volunteer drivers. And the second is to provide credits, exemptions, or discounts for drivers who are people experiencing low incomes. Now, one of the concerns the EMAC has noted is the need to account for all impacted populations geographically. So we have, in conjunction with the EMAC, developed the following language for that. Define the corridor for investment of toll revenues to follow the impact of the project and not be set as a specific distance from the highway, for example, 1 or 2 or 3 miles. The needs of communities identified in the equity framework may be further from the highway. The committee also noted 2 important elements: that equitable investment should not be delayed and that the focus should be on equity advancement, not just mitigation. So the following language states, provide investments on or before day 1, and investment should go further than reducing or avoiding impacts to advance equity. Finally, we've heard the importance of fully leveraging the environmental review process to address equity through neighborhood health and safety. So we developed this language here as well: improve the Oregon toll program's impact on health and safety through the development of the toll project environmental review process that complete the following actions: design a toll system to lessen congestion on the highways, to improve the lives of those living near or traveling on them, which are disproportionately people from equity framework identified communities. B, analyze the benefits to neighborhood health and safety to determine what investments are advancing equity, not just mitigating the status quo. C, provide greater detail about local air quality monitoring and conditions, which is beyond a look at the regional impact. So not just regional emissions, but localized air quality impacts. And D, take additional steps than what is traditionally measured in the federal review process to connect transportation planning to health outcomes. And one thing that there's been interest in is to integrate a health impact assessment, HIA, or elements of the HIA into the process. So I'll kick this off now to Jessica to take it from here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for walking us through the EMAC preferred neighborhood health and safety options. So while the options are fresh in your minds, let's ask and answer the following question that you see on the screen. How close are we to a recommendation on neighborhood health and safety policies and strategies? In other words, are the options we just reviewed lining up well to transition into EMAC recommendations? So let us know what you think by taking this quick pulse poll that will come up on your screen shortly. Just a friendly reminder, we kindly ask that EMAC committee members take the poll, that only EMAC committee members take the poll. And for EMAC members who are joining us by phone, please unmute yourself and let us know your vote so a staff member may cast it for you. So Nick, are we ready? Let's poll. Great. So while we're waiting for the poll results to come in, if you have some things you want to discuss, save your thoughts for the discussion we're going to have after the poll. And as you can see, as we've done before, the poll will ask you to rank. How close are we to the recommendation? Are we halfway there, less than halfway there, or more than halfway there? For members of the public that want to share their thoughts, please visit OregonTolling.org for more information. Okay, we'll give it one more minute. Nicole, why don't you bring everybody up on screen? Thank you. So let's go ahead and wrap up our results and see what the results are. Okay. So 21 to 40, 18% of you think 21 to 40%, 18% think 41 to 60%. So that's kind of the halfway mark. And then about a third of you think that we're close to 80% or between 60 and 80%. And my gosh, wow, some of you think we're 80 to 100%, 30%, 36%. That's awesome. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we start with any of the members that were in the 21 or under 40%, and if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know your thoughts about why, what will bring us closer. So feel free to unmute yourself and raise your hand virtually and a real hand so we can call on you.
Hi,
Michael.
everyone. I'm happy to share. I was in that lower end bucket. And I think, when I think through this, I think, the policies, they're really going in the right direction. But I think my greatest concern is still around really understanding the financial plan for all of the toll revenues, and my concern around setting that up equitably. Recently I understand there were some funding commitments made for I-205 toll revenues towards the construction phase funding for the Abernathy Bridge, and so I am kind of really eager or hoping that we can get more clarity on what kind of funding would be available for these investments. I think that is going to be what I think gives these recommendations and policies the oomph that they need. And so that is really where my, I feel the greatest uncertainty.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else want to jump in and share your thoughts? Add to Michael's?
Hi, this is James. I would like to add on to what Michael said. I agree, because one of the things I think about is if the funding is only available to use for, say, long-term projects, and so then the community is like, oh, this funding is just going into a bridge or something else that's going to take 5+ years to bring to fruition, then I worry that the impact of those funds might not actually get to the community on some smaller projects or things that would make a more direct impact.
Good thoughts. Anyone else want to share your thoughts? So would it be fair to say that maybe getting more of that financial information will help bring some of those numbers up and closer to the recommendation? I know, does that sit well with you, Michael and James? And we have a little more time if any of you want to jump in, even if you were in the 100% or close to 100% thinking that the strategy, the policies and strategies were there.
Yeah, hey Jessica, it's John.
Hi, John.
I was a little bit on the higher side, but not completely convinced. And the thing that was missing for me, which might kind of dovetail to what people are saying, is just a little bit more detail. Like there's a lot of great words, and I think it's come a long way. But what I think that means versus what someone else thinks that means, I mean, it would be nice in some of those categories if we said safety is this, or or even like not near the community. Is there a mileage? Like how are we going to really know if the program's actually providing benefits to folks within certain zip codes of the freeway? So I just felt like a little bit more like index or glossary of what those details mean would help me go to that next level of support and just feeling good about it. But I think it's in a really good place. It just needs a little bit more.
So John, would you like to see an index or glossary in the package of the draft or the recommendations that you ultimately provide?
I would, and I mean, I think it's hard because I think one of the financial issues is we don't really know. We have these guesstimates, but I do think estimates are important, right? We're talking about $5 million or $50 million, because that's a big difference. Or when we talk, I mean, even some of the different modes we would subsidize, or even low income, have we agreed upon the definition of low income? So I think there's some stuff that would help us kind of go, yep, that's the group I'm advocating for, or that's what I wanted this to actually mean. And I think it's really good, but a little bit more specificity in a separate document that I bet you could socialize with the committee, just so we were like, yes, that's exactly who we were fighting for. So
awesome. Great. We have a little more time. Does anyone want to add to this conversation? Go ahead, Commissioner Sharon.
I think those are certainly understandable and good comments. And it seems like maybe one way to get at the desire to make sure there's funding for smaller community-based projects is to actually say that somewhere, because I like that. I think, you know, the goal of trying to get some projects on the ground before there's big infrastructure built. If we can say, you know, we'd like to see smaller community-based projects included, then I think that's a lot easier to deploy early in the project. So just sending the sentiment that this committee thinks focusing on neighborhood scale improvements is a good thing would be helpful going forward.
Excellent. Does that spur any more thoughts from any more members? Okay, I am not seeing any hand.
I'll jump in, and I just thank you, Sharon. I think that would be, you know, really strategic, and it for me, like, kind of brings down some of the large system scale things that we talk about to, you know, to the local level. So at community organizations or local jurisdictions, and, like, you know, providing the tools and frankly the funding and support so that they can make really impactful changes to the transportation system that gets at all of the things that we're talking about here, really around, you know, equity and safety and you know, reducing our climate emissions, that sort of thing.
You know, I think the community that's best suited to decide on the neighborhood scale impact improvements is the neighborhood. And so maybe emphasizing that we want some ability for local decision making to be included.
Yes, I support that.
Those are wonderful, wonderful comments. Any other thoughts from the members? Well, thank you, Sharon and Michael and James and John. I think we'll wrap up this discussion. And if anybody has any afterthoughts, please feel free to reach out to Garrett and myself, and we'll follow up with you on offline. Before we move on, we would like to take we'd like to pause to take a screenshot of the committee again. So I think, Nick, are you going to do those honors?
I am happy to do that. So if you are comfortable switching on your cameras, we'll take just a couple seconds here and we'll take a nice photo for everyone.
You'll give us a 1, 2, 3, right?
I will now.
Okay.
Now that you mentioned it.
We don't want shock pictures.
I had a pretty nice looking face. Okay, ready? Everybody, 1, 2, 3. Okay, looks great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for that photo moment. All right, moving on. So let's pull up slide 25. I think that's there. Perfect. All right. Now, as mentioned earlier, we're going to take a closer look at EMAC's process to develop and author recommendations for the Oregon Transportation Commission. Over to you, Garrett.
Yeah, excellent. And if we can go to the next slide. So like Jessica had talked about before, and I'm actually really glad the questions that were brought up in discussion about finances and defining safety and what is our definition for low income, because that was our hope from an ODOT standpoint, is to bring you that research on implementation and assumed toll rates and project revenue estimates before you get to the OTC recommendation in that September-November timeframe. And so again, kind of what's happening prior to that is our full committee meeting in August on impacts to low income communities and environmental justice transportation needs. But really what started this month and then leading through November is the meeting of our EMAC navigators, our sub team that's working on kind of the details and really fleshing out that document. Next slide. And so this is, again, we're open to feedback on this, but in looking to support your work, ODOT is here to help create the document, gather information, write, edit images, maps, help facilitate subgroup meetings or meetings like we have here. Working on a process to bring you that information, the financial information on what was assumed a few years ago with the value pricing feasibility analysis. There were two toll scenarios, concept C and concept E back then, that are very similar to the footprint of the two toll projects that we have currently here today. And so that I would say expect that in a like September timeframe, September, October as the full committee. And we'll work on that information with the navigators as we get that and talk about the process of when we'll get more detailed information as it goes along. Because again, the toll rate will not be set itself for the regional tolling project until 2024. It comes after the full environmental review. As we know, we're starting the equity work on these national environment, before the federal review process goes. And so as the federal review process comes along, we gain more and more information about what tolling, where is it spreading benefits and burdens. And so we plan to bring that information to you all as it comes through. And then the same thing with what Hannah and others and Ping and others are working on from the community engagement side of it, bringing that information back to you again to see even the options that you talked about today. What does the community think about those? What needs does it address specifically within different groups of our equity framework? Slide. And so this is just kind of a detailed schedule that we're proposing as far as how the interplay between the navigators and the EMAC works. And so as you can see here, a lot of times the navigators, like they did this month, get sort of a preview of what's coming up at the next meeting and really help us craft and inform and improve our work. You'll hear about in a second from James and Fabian, all the key statements. Those came out of that navigators meeting. So that was something we didn't know about, but now we're changing and we want to help support. Next slide. Jessica, I'll transition it now back to you.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. So after hearing about the process to develop your recommendations for the Oregon Transportation Commission, does the support proposed by ODOT meet your needs? So Nicole, can we bring everybody back up on screen? Again, we've just reviewed and hopefully you've read in your materials and or heard about in the subgroup work that we've been doing together about everything that Garrett has mentioned. And the question is, does this support that's proposed by ODOT, does this meet your needs to develop the recommendations? So again, this is a point of discussion. Feel free to unmute yourself and raise your hand virtually or actually, so we can hear from you. I think we got a quiet group right now. Am I missing any hands?
I don't see any in the chat. I wonder if do folks want to give a thumbs up or maybe sideways or so, or where
yeah,
temperature wise on it.
Yeah, how's this sounding? The support that ODOT is giving you? Thumbs up. I see a thumbs up. Awesome. Thumbs up. Okay. Okay, great. Let's go back to next up, we'll hear from the sub-team called EMAC Navigators, members James and Fabian. We'll talk about the Navigators' purpose and their work on the recommendations. Over to you, James.
All right. Hey, thanks, everyone. Excuse me. There's just a couple slides here, and I want to really talk with you and make sure that everyone has clarity. We've only had one meeting of this navigators sub team, and I don't think we were all there at that meeting, but a lot of questions came up during that meeting. And so what I wanted to do is just make sure that some of those key questions that we brought them back to this group. So then this group was, could hear and be clear on those things, as well as get the input from this group having to do with these questions that did come up during our meeting. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. I've got to kind of adjust my picture so I can read the piece. Okay, so one of the key statements, the recommendations today are based off of our personal experience and experiences of the community, reviewing research and community engagement feedback provided by ODOT and through discussions of the committee. Personally, I think that the public comment is something that's very important with this process, and we need to be cognizant of the public comment. If we could, with that being said, these provide a snapshot of time and so forth. If we could go to the next slide. Our work to date has been focused on the I-5 tolling project and not the I-205, excuse me, and not the I-5 tolling project and the I-205 regional mobility project. The I-205 feedback will likely inform recommendations for the regional system. But there are no additional issues and concerns that are specific to the regional system. Recommendations for the I-205 area that we're working on right now may apply to the regional system, but should not be assumed without fully evaluating the whole system. So one of the things here that we had a lot of discussion on is we wanted to make sure that the work we're doing here isn't just put over the top of an I-5 discussion, because I think that I came into this thinking we were just talking about that 205 area. I didn't have my feet grounded in this is more of a regional conversation, not a localized conversation. Because again, I want to make sure that the public and the community have an understanding of the regionalness of the work that we're doing, just as far as we're informing that regional work. And if we could go to the next slide. The regional mobility pricing project requires the same degree, if not more, of expertise, experience, research, and engagement that has gone into the I-205 project. It is yet to receive that level of detail analysis at this stage of the project. So when we look at the regional mobility pricing project, that's when we're talking about I-5 and the rest of 205. And so that has not been framed yet. We haven't said this is what we're doing in those areas, but the work that we're doing here will help to inform that. Next slide, please. Many people do not know today about the regional mobility pricing project, and feedback on I-205 should be seen as the tip of the iceberg. This is kind of what I was just talking about. We welcome the opportunity to leverage our work to date, but we want to make sure that ODOT applies the same level of rigor answering key equity questions regarding the regional tolling project, as well as interactions between two tolling systems. I can't read the bottom because that's where the final sentence, that's where the pictures are on my screen.
It said, James, just that no assumption should be made about transferability of the recommendations from one project to the other.
Yep, thank you for that. And is there one more slide? Yes. So further work needs to be done to determine what will advance equity in the I-205 tolling project. I'm going to say it's hard to say I-205 and I-5 so many times. A key step in this process will be to examine the findings of the impact analysis that ODOT is currently conducting, which should be coming in late 2021 or early 2022. Proposed investments will need to be taken to the equity framework identified communities that will be impacted to ask them what would best advance equity. I don't know if there's any other on this. Yep, there's one more. There's always one more.
Do you want Fabian to read them?
Yeah, Fabian?
Yeah, no, James was doing a great job covering it all. But yeah, since there will be important project level decisions on the regional mobility pricing project from 2022 to 2024, we recommend that an equity oversight committee, and similar to how EMAC is currently formed, be in place to provide ongoing support and guidance.
Keep going, Fabian.
I think we missed, can we go back one slide? Oh, okay. I guess that's it. That was it. You guys, thank you. Thank you, Fabian and James, for walking us through that great work that's underway with the navigators. Before we move on, Fabian and James, do you want to say a little bit more about these key statements? And just everyone keep in mind, these are the key statements that will be going into the recommendations that are being authored by your team members and yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, I would just add a little bit about how these key statements came from the conversation we had with the staff about taking ownership of these recommendations. And we hope that these key statements speak for themselves, and we're open to any more suggestions as well.
Wonderful. James, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. I just wanted to know if there's any questions that people have, or feedback or clarity that we can make.
Please unmute yourself if you have any questions or thoughts for James and Fabian. Okay, I'm hearing nobody unmute themselves. So why don't we go to the next slide, and we're gonna have a conversation coming up soon. So if we missed you, we'll talk about it then. All right, so on the screen, you will see a collection of questions. These are the rigorous questions that we have heard from EMAC. For each potential policy and strategy, you are asking ODOT to give answers that will strengthen and inform EMAC recommendations. So think of these questions as tools by which we explore the impact and implementation for these policies and strategies. Please note that just like the key statements, these questions are and the answers are another section in the recommendations that you're developing. So we'll walk through the questions now. Question number one, the main question always is, how would this advance equity as defined by the equity framework? Who is responsible and involved? What would the process be? What would it cost? What would it take to deliver this on day one of tolling or before? What do equity framework identified communities think? Next slide. How would this work with the Oregon Constitution or in the state of Washington? Will this be funded through project mitigation, strategic investments, or other? Is this a part of the I-205 toll project, regional mobility pricing project, or Oregon toll program? Next slide. What are the threats or barriers to these policies and strategies being realized? How are they being addressed? So these are the questions that will help shape how you develop your final recommendations. Next slide. So are these the right questions? Let us know your thoughts. So Nicole, if you can pull everybody up on screen again. That was some, oh, go ahead, Garrett.
As folks are kind of diving in here, you saw a picture of a document on the screen, and we provided kind of a sample of what that would look like in the EMAC recommendation document on how ODOT we would plan to bring information back to. So no, that's kind of what these questions are guiding, and why it's important to kind of get them in now is so as we work these next few months to bring you back information, are these the right questions that you need information on to then take the next step on your recommendation work?
Great. That's awesome. So are these the right questions? Maybe we can get head nods, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. I
Can
think
you tell me what slides those are? I just want to go back and look at the questions again.
you bet. So slides 37 through 39.
And Amanda, there's one additional slide from what was in the packet, and that was based off of a comment we got from Kari that we thought was really helpful around the threats piece of it and what we're doing to address that.
Yeah. So that'll be posted on the website with the updated presentation. So I think we've got a few thumbs up that these are the right questions. Any comments? Any thoughts? All right. I am not seeing any hands. Okay. We'll move on. So if we can go back to the slides, I think we're on slide 41. And I think I'm going to pass this over to you, Garrett.
Excellent. So also in the EMAC recommendation, one of the things that's really important is that we don't overgeneralize the needs of equity, and that we're really clear about of the different communities that are identified in our equity framework. What are the specific needs of each one of these communities? What is that at the I-205 project level? And what is that at the regional project level, the regional mobility pricing project? And so what really, do you mind just going back one slide, please? So this page in the document is really key from just setting up an outline on, and what it would entail would be, what's the feedbacks, what is the feedback from on tolling from this specific group in the equity framework? And then what are the strengths and needs that we've identified through outreach? And so there's word around strengths or assets to me is really key, because a lot of times these traditional like urban planning, transportation planning projects are set up in a needs-based assessment. And so by being clear that we're also, that equity framework communities aren't just viewed by what their needs are, but we really should recognize and identify the assets and the strengths within communities and build from those is important. And so that's why that there's like, it's a small word, but to me, it's a really key step in how we're like evaluating and then incorporating feedback from equity framework communities into the project. So that's a long way of saying this is the thought that was just kind of put into these little one-pagers that are in your document. But we see this as an area, kind of a rough outline on how we can bring this information back to you to inform your work forming the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. So our discussion continues with the following question. Is this how you want information from equity framework communities to come back to you? So I'm going to pull everybody back up on screen again. As I ask this question, is this how you want information from equity framework communities to come back to you? Think about the following. You know, is it clear that we are not grouping everyone into the same pot? And is the feedback we're getting specific to each project, the I-205 or the regional? This is another key, as Garrett has mentioned, this is another key section in your EMAC recommendations. Do you want it in a different format? Do you need other information? So the purpose is for you to let us know how you need information from these communities in order to develop your recommendations. So go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and raise your virtual or actual hand if you have some thoughts on that. James?
Hi. The piece I like best about that is actually getting kind of some prioritization from various communities. I think that that's important. When I look at someone like Ping as an example of someone who's actually interacting with these communities, I don't know if, how that information's collected. And so it'd be good to get some understanding of how we might be able to go out and get that information.
Hannah or Ping, do you want to respond to that briefly?
Yeah, I can respond to that.
Thank you,
Hi,
Ping.
everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for having me here. So we just started our second round of engagement, and yes, sometimes getting information back from the community is a lot of work, but sometimes community members are very eager to respond. So the liaison are very good at getting the information over. If information that they get or question that been asked is something that's very basic, the liaison already been briefed, so they know how to answer. But if a question is a little bit too complicated, then they usually just text it to me, and I usually just send it to, for instance, Kern West or Hannah to have them answer the questions. So that brings to another one. I don't know if it's my time to talk about the engagement work, but I'll leave those whatever to the engagement work next. But
No.
yeah, we do share information with the team, and most of the time people ask us very generic questions, and the things that we hear the most is, can we not have it? So we know that that's impossible. So the liaison knows how to say that, we can't just buy our way out. So we hear the most is how much, and can we not have it?
James, does that answer your question about prioritization, or did you?
Well, it actually brings up something else for me, and that's the community resistance. And it's like, so as Ping said, it's happening. So but we still need to be able to address community resistance in some means, or it's just going to come back as we were opposed to it and they did it anyway. They were nice enough to do whatever, but still, there's still a lot of community resistance. And I don't know how we could find out the level of community existence or how we might try and mitigate community resistance. But if we don't really work at that, it's going to be hard to pull off a successful project.
Yeah. We did tell our liaison to be more sympathetic when approaching community members. I actually, we had the sessions 2 weeks ago going through how methods of ways of approaching the community members more effectively. So one of the things that we talk about is make sure that the liaison understand liaison themselves also residents in the neighborhood, and we understand that it's painful and it's a burden. And we just want to make sure people understand that we are asking for people to give us feedback. And yes, it's hard. We don't know how to ease that or have new suggestion, but we always ask the community members that, do you have a better way to do it? Do you have any suggestions? And usually after community members start talking, in a few minutes, they realize that, oh, wow, I guess this is the solutions. They realize that they can complain, but they don't really have any better suggestions. And that's what most of us realize as well. We have a lot of suggestions. We keep saying, how about we do this while we do that? And obviously, ODOT and a lot of different consultants have thought about all the different possibilities. But towards the end, I guess this is the best solutions. And a lot of people actually agree to that.
So
Okay.
one of the things, I'm sorry, Chairman. Well, one of the things I was thinking about when I think of that form that you put together, Garrett, is to Ping's point, it's making me think about, like, if you're asking questions that are going over people's heads, you're not going to get information. And if the information, if we said we want to try and get information on how are people feeling about the project or the process or so forth, I think about those surveys that you see all over the place, you know, and it's just smiley faces. And if it's like, we end up with a frowny face because that's the feedback we're getting, because that's how people are feeling, you know, that talks to how the community feels about it. And, you know, we could, I think that that would be a good ad, just because you get a lot just from that visual alone.
Great. Oh, you know, I see 3 hands right now. Why don't we go? I saw Hannah and Sharon and Michael. So why don't we go in that order?
Thanks. I just wanted to kind of echo what Ping was saying. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago. We do pretty intentional debriefs after we work with community engagement liaisons, and we also do it kind of halfway through to see if, you know, if we kind of need to pivot while we're doing the engagement. And then before we start a round of engagement, you know, we're trying to be more intentional about bringing Ping and the liaisons into the planning to kind of make adjustments and learn from the lessons before. And something that came up in our planning for the discussion groups that Ping will talk about later is, you know, we were really called out that we need to be really honest when we're having the discussion groups that we are tolling. You know, it's not if we toll, like we are tolling. And so we're having discussion groups to talk about like, what is the best way to do this to make this easier on communities, and what does that mean, and what are the possibilities. And I don't know, I thought that was a pretty big statement to be really clear about that, and then kind of go into digging into that question.
Great. Thank you for that, Hannah. I'm going to jump quickly to Sharon and then Michael.
Thanks. It occurs to me that, you know, I like the very honest approach, which is we're doing this, but we also want to take actions that will mitigate the impact. And we need to get better words than that because that's not meaningful for people. But maybe say, we're doing it, but we want to know as we do it, what can we do in your neighborhood that will make things a little better for you to kind of offset this impact? And that's kind of getting at what is the local need for, you know, is it bus shelters? Is it more bike parking? Is it better sidewalks? Is it, you know, because I don't know what the neighborhood needs. And if we ask them, okay, if you're going to have to accept tolling, what does your neighborhood need to help you get around better? Just a thought.
It's great. Michael, you got about a minute.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of this being laid out. And I think in that top section, the feedback on tolls and listing out priorities, I think that's super important. And I guess I'm hoping for some nuance in the priorities and concerns. And, you know, as you're engaging with people, you know, really trying to dig into not only users of the interstate system, but those who travel by non-car means, and understanding, you know, what are their needs. And I think, you know, as we sort of move towards this future and work to create a transportation system of the future, we're trying to think through, like, how can we make a car dependent lifestyle possible? So really listening to people right now who are not driving around in cars, I think gives us really good insight into how we can make that experience better and attractive for people so that they have that other option. And so that may be something already like that you're working on, but I think it would be really great if those pieces come through in that report as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I see your hand, Abe. This has been a great discussion. If you can just hold your thought, I feel like we've kind of jumped a little forward. Okay, thank you. But we'll get back to this when we talk about the community engagement work. And also just remember to email us or put something in the chat so that we make sure that we capture your questions. But we're going to go ahead and move on for right now. Thank you so much for all of that awesome contributions to our meeting. So let's pull back up our slides and get to slide, yes, 43.
Yeah, and that was an excellent discussion. And so I'll be brief with these so we can catch back up. But
thank you.
So we heard questions from the committee around what should you expect from that meeting in November. And so the Oregon Transportation's role is really to direct ODOT on the policy and strategy investments. And so a couple of actions, what you might see coming out of that November meeting are identifying actionable items for ODOT to implement. So kind of making actions there. You'll see the OTC provide direction to ODOT to where focus additional study or planning before something would be kind of stamped approved at that policy or strategy level. And then also to identify questions or information that the OTC needs from ODOT and EMAC to make those future commitments. Because if we remember, we're coming to OTC and EMAC are kind of having this conversation this November, and then again sometime next spring, earlier in the year. And so after the OTC meeting, again, and we've been trying to struggle with this a little bit on how do we best bring project updates to you all. We're going to try to find whether that's in the space of these meetings or not. We've kind of tried a few different things. But a lot of important pieces that are starting the regional mobility pricing project, which is that regional tolling project, are really occurring in these next few months. And to Hannah's point about how we're trying to learn and improve on this process, EMAC weighing in on the purpose, goals, alternatives for the I-205 project was an opportunity we missed. And so we don't want to miss that again. And so we're going to be bringing that forward to you as that's being formed here in the next few months. In addition, we'll know more about the impacts that are run in the modeling world on for the I-205 toll project. And so we'll bring back to you the results of that analysis and where we're looking at if there are proposed mitigation or how the strategic investments would work there. And then this whole piece about kind of who oversees the toll rate going forward, what's that system of accountability, what are enforcements or violations, how does that work? We'll bring you research on that and some early plans there. And then as we heard from your recommendation today, we're open for that as well. Let's talk about EMAC's interest in a role from 2022 to 2024. So Jessica, I'll transition it back to you.
Great, thank you, Garrett. So the question is, after we've walked through this whole process, does it make sense? So if Nicole, if you want to pull everybody back up on screen, what we just walked through, the process of how you're developing your recommendations, does this process for developing and sharing your recommendations to the Oregon Transportation Commission make sense? And I'm happy to go back to Abe, because I know you had a thought. We could start with you if you'd like to answer this question and say what you were thinking before.
My question from before, I think, will be answered in our. I didn't see that we were talking more about tolling engagement in the next section of our discussion. So I might just hold my comment and see if the question's answered by itself. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay. So you know what? How about everybody just let us know, does the process that we walk through make sense? If you want to just give us a thumbs up or a nod. I see one thumbs up. Cool. Great. Awesome. Okay, great. Then I think we can move on. All right, so now let's have a concise update on neighborhood health and safety performance measures. Over to you, Garrett.
Sure, concise it is, Jessica. I'll do my best. So again, performance measures, where that's leading to are first and foremost mitigation, which is this NEPA, or National Environmental Policy Act term, that is very much tied and directed to the impacts of the project itself. So that's first and foremost, but also these performance measures will be used to inform what those strategy investments are, because we'll understand about where benefits and burdens are going to be shared. Next slide. And so again, the performance measures are the leaves of the NEPA tree that emanates from the purpose and need, goals, and objectives. And so we won't walk through all the statements, but in your performance measures document that was provided to you for the meeting, we did our best to capture what we heard and then what we, ODOT, are doing about it. And again, if things are committed to in the what we are doing about it section, they're immediately going to inform the I-205 toll project. And as you'll see here in the next few months, we're going to use some of these same performance measures and probably some tailoring, but they'll meet the regional mobility pricing project as well. So some of the highlights on that, we know to do equity, you can't just look at, data and quantitative, that kind of analysis alone. And so in areas where we're looking at impacts and to understand kind of what would be needed there, we're going to pair what was previously just kind of quantitative or data with community engagement to understand that full impact and what should be done. We're still working on the best data sources for this, but incorporating heat islands and health outcome mapping, meaning kind of existing asthma rates or other types of health disparities, including that in the analysis. Where that would come into impact is if we're looking at if tolling is sending and diverting more people from the highway in neighborhoods. If we now then know where there are the existing heat islands or existing kind of negative health outcomes, we can better tailor and understand the impacts and then what we would do to address that. And then we had a full kind of we had a bunch of recommendations for other types of community resources that didn't fit really well within the categories that were in the social resources map. And so we'll make kind of a catch-all cultural and community resources categories that can help pick up those pieces that were missed in kind of the mainline ones. And so we will be meeting with our SCUBA team. We'll be taking a deep dive into these and then performance measures on low income impacts this next month. And so we'll just pause here kind of to daylight this as a full committee. Do you have any additional feedback for us at this point?
Go ahead and unmute yourself and raise your virtual or actual hand if you have any feedback for ODOT right now. Okay, hearing no feedback, I think we can safely move on. All right, so now we'll hear public comments, committee members reporting out, and updates from ODOT's community engagement team. Next slide, please. So next up, we've saved time for verbal comment from members of the public to share with the committee. If you would like to address the committee, please raise your virtual hand. If you're on the phone and you want to raise your hand, please use *9. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. Please note comments are welcome at any time by emailing oregontolling@odot.state.or.us or calling 503-837-3536 and leave a voicemail. And please add committee public comment in the subject line or with your message. Are there any raised hands? Nick, do we have anyone out there?
We don't. Nobody's raised their hands yet, Jessica.
Okay. Gosh, okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go forward? And if somebody does come in, Nick, will you let me know?
I will let you know.
Thank you. Okay. So going on. Now let's find out what you are hearing from your community. First up, we've asked Michael to give us an update about the great work that the Pricing Option for Equity Mobility Committee, also known as POEM, is doing. So Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Jessica, I'll actually jump in. We do have somebody that has raised their hand.
Oh, we do?
And yes.
Okay, Michael, I'm sorry. Can I give you a pause? Perfect. Thank you to the public member, a member of the public that has joined us. We'd love to hear from you.
And Lauralee, I have given you permission to talk, so you should be ready whenever you are.
Thank you. I'm just curious why there's not been any public statements like this. Hasn't been on the news much, or it seems like nearly every person that I speak to in my personal life has never heard about the tolling project, and it just seems that it's being kind of crept in without really notifying people about it, and that causes concern because I feel like there's not really an opportunity for there to be any community involvement at all in the decision-making processes. Hello.
Hello, Lorelai. You have another minute to speak. Would you like?
Oh
to
no, I just, I personally am obviously opposed to a toll, but it's not my choice. I just feel like the community should have the more of an ability to be involved, and no one is being notified of this. Why is it not on the news that Oregon is moving to tolling systems? Why isn't it in the newspaper? Why isn't it in the community newsletters that go out? I mean, it feels like it's being done pretty much secretively from a citizen standpoint.
Where are you calling from, if you don't mind sharing?
From Oregon City.
Okay.
And I'm seriously concerned about the impact that it's going to have in downtown Oregon City as people exit the freeway just before the 213 interchange and try to bypass the toll to go through Oregon City, hop across the Oregon City Bridge, which is very small. It's going to inundate Oregon City, and then they'll be, going into Willamette and West Lynn, and I just feel like it's seriously going to impact our communities, and nobody knows that it's going on.
Lorelai.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, thank you so much for calling in. And I'm going to defer to Garrett at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to, Lorelai, we've got some information we can send in the chat and connect with you. We had your desire to have more people know about the tolling project, and is exactly our same desire as well. So we can talk, we'd love to kind of connect offline to talk about what we have been doing, ways we can improve and outreach. Just for an example, we had somebody from West Lynn, a resident there, come to this last EMAC meeting, give public comment. We connected with her. She's gonna host a neighborhood meeting, and we're gonna show up and talk tolling with the neighbors. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here and do this. And we'd love to connect with you and do a similar thing if you're open to that.
Thank you, Garrett. And Lorelai, thank you for joining the meeting. And we hope if you can put your information in the chat so that we can follow up with you after the meeting. Nick, are there any other members out there, members of the public that would like to talk?
Yes. John Lay, I've given you permission to unmute your microphone, so you should be good to go whenever you're ready.
Thank you. John Lee from Clark County. I appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, tolling is an outrageously expensive way to collect money for transportation projects. In the state of Washington, on I-405 in the Seattle area, over 40% of the money collected goes to the cost of collection. And if you're going to pick the people's pockets to pay for transportation, you should do it in an efficient manner so that the majority of the money actually goes to pay for the transportation projects being funded. Number two, Laura Lee hit on a very, very important point. People will avoid the financial pain by diverting onto side roads and going around. During the Value Pricing Policy Advisory Committee meetings 2 years ago, it was revealed that after they toll all I-5 and I-205, there would be an expected 130,000 vehicles diverting to avoid the tolls. And that's ridiculous because it makes our neighborhoods unsafe. It adds congestions on the side roads, on the other thoroughfares. At the end of the day, what the people want and need most is improved traffic travel times, reduced traffic congestion, which means adding capacity. I applaud the fact that they're looking at adding capacity over the Abernathy Bridge. That's a good start, but the best way to pay for it would be the gas tax, which has a 1% or less cost of collection. That's an efficient way to raise money for transportation projects. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think we'll, if you would like to leave your information in the chat as well, I believe someone will reach out to you for further conversation. Do you have anything else to add, Garrett?
No, I think that's great. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, perfect. Nick, do we have anyone else out there?
This moment, nobody else has raised their hands.
Okay. We want to thank both John and Laura Lee, my apologies, for joining us today. We really appreciate your commitment to this process as well. So let's jump back to Michael. If we can pull up slide 55. And let's talk about POEM.
Great, thank you. And thanks to the folks who provided public comment. I really appreciated hearing those thoughts and concerns. So thank you for giving me the space to provide you with an update on our pricing options for equitable mobility task force. This task force has been meeting over the last 18 months. And in early July, they voted to adopt a set of recommendations that will go to City Bureau leadership and to City Council this fall. Next slide, please. So the POEM task force took a look at new pricing strategies to see if and how they could help create a system where people can get around more easily with less carbon emissions and support a more equitable system. So really changing the status quo of our current system. Next slide, please. And before sharing specific recommendations around pricing, the POEM task force pulled together a set of foundational statements that really set the stage for how they view the current conditions. It includes statements that the transportation status quo is inequitable, it exacerbates poor health outcomes, costs our economy, and presents large safety risks. Many things we've also talked about here in EMAC. Also that we are in a climate crisis that is fueled by greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector, that we must acknowledge our history of disinvestment and harm in our BIPOC, low income and disability communities. And finally, that our system today over-prioritizes cars over people who do not have the physical or legal ability to drive or do not have access to a vehicle. Next slide, please. After many, many conversations, the group concluded that pricing holds promise as a strategy to advance mobility, climate, and equity, but only if designed, implemented, and adjusted with intention. Next slide, please. And some key elements of moving equitable mobility work forward include prioritizing demand management of our current system, provide exemptions for households on low incomes, center climate and equity outcomes, reinvest revenue smartly into a better mobility future, and reduce burdens of technology and enforcement. Next slide, please. So here are the recommendations that came out of the POEM task force, and they're broken into shorter term recommendations as well as some longer term strategies. So here in the short term or nearer term, the creation of a flexible commuter benefits program, sometimes that's called a parking cash out, and really recognizing the important role that employers make in helping employees get to work and how they get to work. Develop a fee on urban delivery to reduce vehicle miles traveled, fees on private off-street parking lots, create new priced on-street permit and meter districts, accelerate performance-based parking, which is a detailed parking management plan that the Bureau of Transportation developed a few years ago, and is a detailed plan that was adopted by City Council in 2018. And advocate for Oregon constitutional restriction changes. And that is referring to the constitutional restriction where fees and taxes collected on automobiles has to be reinvested into that right of way for automobiles as well. And then, of course, especially applicable to our EMAC group is a recommendation to the city to advocate for equitable mobility principles and design in the state toll program. And then we'll go to the next slide, please. On a longer horizon, the task force recommends moving towards truly dynamic demand-based parking pricing, a locally controlled road usage charge, and further consideration of a central city cordon. And then we'll go to the next slide. And critical to all of these ideas is reinvestment of revenues collected into complementary strategies that help us move towards equitable mobility. So this includes things like major investments in public transit, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, safety of the transportation system, incentives and financial support to those who need it to use sustainable modes of travel, support for fuel shifting, support for affordable housing connected to multimodal options, and support for a land use policy that provides connected and inclusive neighborhoods. Now I'm going quickly, but we'll get to my last slide here. And really, these are all ideas and thoughts, and there's a lot of work to be done. And really, it's further analysis, data gathering, public engagement, and coalition building with community members, businesses, and organizations to really refine these ideas and to sort through, which ones, are practical, what should advance. There's a lot of work to be done. So these are simply, recommendations that the POEM Task Force is recommending that the City Bureau leadership and City Council consider, and are seeking essentially for City Council to provide, further direction on these thoughts and ideas so they can move on to further development and engagement and refinement. So I'll stop there. I know I said a lot very quickly, so I'm happy to, to take questions, or, if you want to have a bigger conversation, offline, I welcome that too. So just let me know.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was awesome. And as you can see, the breadth of the work that POEM has done. If you guys don't mind, we're running so short on time. If you want to ask Michael questions, maybe post them in the chat right now. And as he suggested, follow up with him. And we'll try to find a way maybe to carve out some time to talk about POEM more in depthly in another meeting. Is that okay with everyone? Is that okay with you, Michael?
That sounds great. And I'll put my email here in the chat if someone wants to reach out directly.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. So Garrett, over to you.
Yeah, and I'll just do a quick thing here. So this is the regional mobility pricing project. So that's the regional toll project that we've been talking about. And as you can see here, the footprint on the screen is in that teal area, really along I-5 and then I-205 in Oregon. And the goals you see here on the left side of the screen are really the goals that are of our Urban Mobility Office, which is where the toll program is housed. And it's really facing the biggest challenges of our day in equity, climate change, congestion, safety, and reliable funding. So that is kind of the umbrella in which we're working. Next slide. So Hannah, I think I'm going to transition it to you and Ping.
Great. Thanks so much, Garrett. Hi, EMAC. I'm happy to be here to talk about the engagement that we have planned for the Regional Mobility Pricing Project. This summer, we are really inviting public conversations. We want to hear from people about congestion pricing on I-5 and I-205. And we really want to hear from the community as we look for ways to address traffic congestion, equity, climate change, and look for a sustainable funding source to fund transportation improvements. Over the next year, we're looking for public input to really understand what's important to people, regional priorities, what the goals for this big project should be, and which alternatives we should study further in more detail. So you can see up on the screen, we have several activities that we're going to be doing. Really, we have an emphasis for hearing from those equity framework communities that Garrett and Jessica and Chris and Ping have been speaking about. We are right now scheduling and conducting briefings. Big thank you to this committee for looking at the list of community organizations and business organizations. Right now, we're reaching out to 30 community organizations and 15 business and commerce organizations and 15 government committees, commissions, boards. Can I get the next slide, please? Oh, can you hear me? I'm gonna keep going. This summer, to get the word out and get more input, we are doing simple 1-minute surveys. And this approach really came from input from our last round of engagement on the I-205 toll project, where we heard that people are overloaded with surveys, survey fatigue, and that we need to be mindful that we are in a pandemic and people have a lot on their plate right now. So the goal of these simple surveys is it's 1 to 2 multiple choice questions, and we're sending those out weekly via social media, email, and the liaisons. Want to see how we're doing? Next slide, please. So this right here shows you that the darker circles is where we are seeing more responses. And we have gotten responses from over 100 zip codes in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Right now, there's around 2,600 responses, and that's for surveys 1, 2, and 3. All 3 surveys are still open, so you can still take them and still help share them. Right now, we are in survey 4, and next week is the final survey, survey 5. And I just want to share that I'll be coming back to report out on the findings for what we're learning about in these surveys, as well as really pulling out the input that we get from the surveys that the liaisons are sharing with our equity framework communities, because we really want to continue to center equity in the toll projects. So with that, next slide, please. Ping, she needs no introduction. She's already said hello last time she was here to speak about the engagement with the liaisons for the I-205 toll project. Tonight, she's here to talk about the discussion groups that we're doing this summer for the Regional Mobility Pricing Project. Ping?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I got to do it really quick because I have a 5 p.m. Presentation. So just want to share with all of you, we have 8 liaisons right now. So 2 liaisons for each language group. So where the Vietnamese, Chinese, Russians, and Spanish liaisons are all working with the communities, recruiting people for the discussion panel. Because they understand that the project has spanned all the way to I-205 and I-58 corridor. So they have been advised to try to recruit panelists from basically all these different areas. The ANMs are also feeling the pressures because this is not an easy topic to talk about, but they understand the need of to do this. So we recently just received the tool package and the banners and all the information they needed to approach the communities. We are hoping that we can get more than 50 per liaison, 50 surveys per liaisons, and understanding that not everybody will know about it. So I would suggest that one of the things that we did not talk about with the liaison is that it's not just recruiting people to do a survey, but also sharing the information with public. So I would say is after this meeting, I would like to request some kind of printed materials where the liaison can actually put it at different locations to actually share this with the communities. A lot of locations and offices are still open to public. So I think the liaison can help cover that as well. Sorry, I just have a 5 p.m. At the Hillsborough site presentation. So
thank you, Ping. No, we really appreciate you coming today. So, we're almost at the end of our meeting. Does anybody, we're at the end of the meeting. Does anyone have any burning questions for Hannah then, or Ping, before she leaves? I'm not hearing anybody. Ping, you're free and released to go. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Next slide, please. So Garrett, if you'd like to give us a concise update on the legislation, the toll legislation, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, I'll just say I kind of did my best to concise language it in the email that went out. So this was really just to hold space if anybody had any comments or questions. But we can also do that as well over email or phone calls if people need that as well.
So Abe, was this your question? Was it about legislation?
No, it was about engagement. I guess I wouldn't classify it as a burning question, but I guess I still have questions and see a potential gap in opportunities to review the policies and strategies we're recommending for the I-205 corridor with community engagement and liaison conversations, because I see that mostly, and from what I saw from the sides, it's mostly focused on the regional project, and curious, like within the timeline that we have leading up November, what that will look like, and if that's going to be a piece that we'll be able to incorporate into the recommendations. And I guess earlier I just wanted to tie all this back into our trauma-informed framework that we developed for the EMAC, and highlight that one of the pieces transitioning from trauma to trauma-informed was frequent dialogue with community. And that's what I really see as these ongoing conversations and these touch points and important things like Laura Lee brought up about identifying folks who aren't learning about the project and using those networks to be able to have those conversations.
Excellent points. Hannah, do you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in quickly. Abe, maybe we can connect offline and then bring it to the committee. But quickly, for our discussion groups that we are having this summer, one of the questions is talking about community impacts, and we have pulled out kind of at a high level some of the strategies that have been recommended at EMAC so that we can kind of float those and kind of see, how they land. And then our intention was to bring that back to you to give you some feedback from what we hear.
Okay, great. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Any other burning questions before we close the meeting? All right, next slide, please. We'll close the meeting. Next slide, please. So next steps are, please remember to complete your meeting evaluations. And as we speak, there's an email in your inbox from Nick waiting for you with an email evaluation link. In August, we will hold meetings for scuba team and navigators, and we'll reach out to everyone in the next few days to set up those meetings. And our next EMAC meeting is on August 25th at 3:30 p.m. It will be a workshop on impacts to people experiencing low incomes. Next slide, please. All right, that's it. We'll see everyone next month, but we look forward to talking to you before then. I want to thank everyone for a fabulous meeting. That's it. Good night.
Great job, all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you so much.